Our next session, Crafting Our Future, Climate Craft, and a Call to Action. Please welcome to the stage our moderator, Lindsay Struck, Chief Operating Officer, Nest, Kwejo Sampimpong, Founder and Chief Craftsman, Crafted Glory, and Chelsea Mosen, Senior Director, Impact and Sustainability, Etsy.
Right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Lindsay. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Nest. We are a nonprofit and a global craft advocate. Craft communities, which are often located in some of the world's most climate vulnerable regions, are increasingly facing challenges due to natural disasters, which have been exacerbated by climate change. The size of the handcraft sector, it's pretty substantial. As an economy, craft is the second largest employer of women globally, second only to agriculture. And here in the United States and North America, the estimated value of that sector is $242.4 billion. What that really means is that makers aren't just creating beautiful things, they're really economic drivers, they're job creators, they're sources of income for individuals and for families. Their presence and their contributions are really crucial to driving a diverse and a dynamic economy. And so I'm here today with leading craft marketplace, Etsy, and the founder and chief craftsman of Crafted Glory. We're going to examine the urgent need for intervention and how better informed purchasing decisions can really drive systemic change. Sustainability of the handcraft sector, it really is not just an environmental issue, it's really a human one. And so we're going to talk today about how the environmental shifts are really impacting maker livelihoods. We're going to hear from Kwejo on that. And what we as industry leaders in this room and we as consumers in this room can really do about that. So I'm going to ask Kwejo and Chelsea to please introduce yourselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kwejo Sampimpong, and I'm the founder and owner of Crafted Glory. We make handcrafted wooden furniture that is inspired by my West African culture, as well as modern design. And I started my business back in 2017 when I opened my Etsy shop. But prior to that, I started woodworking in 2015. And all of this is happening in Western North Carolina, which is where I live and work. And I have one employee, and my wife and I run this business along with our employee. Since 2017, we have shipped our furniture to all 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. And being on the Etsy platform has been incredible for our family, for our business, and I'm just so excited to be able to share about my experiences and just represent craft small businesses on Etsy.
Hi there, I'm Chelsea Mosen. I lead Impact at Etsy. Etsy is the global marketplace for unique goods that connects makers, artisans, and creative entrepreneurs to millions of buyers looking for something special. Our sustainability work is rooted in our commitment to create economic empowerment through entrepreneurship. And it is critical to furthering our mission to keep commerce human. At Etsy, we have an ambitious net zero goal that covers all of our emissions. We're driving good progress on that goal each year. We've been doing so every year for the past 5 years. We believe strongly in the work, and we're always pushing new ways to reduce our impact. But a mitigation strategy isn't enough for our community. We have over 5 million sellers who run their own small businesses. They are the heart of Etsy. They are the reason why we exist. And our sellers are much more vulnerable to climate change than traditional retailers. That's why we've been working on what adaptation looks like for our community. We're currently deploying 3 strategies. The first, which we'll talk about here today, is building tools and resources to help creative small businesses prepare for and respond to climate disasters. We also have a grant program that helps our sellers get back on their feet after extreme weather events. And finally, while individual recovery is essential, we also want to ensure that a culture of craft making can endure. That's why we're piloting work at the intersection of craft and climate to ensure that craft communities have the resources and the capacity to reimagine a more resilient future together.
Thank you both. Over the last year, Nest and Etsy have worked together with the Environmental Defense Fund to create a suite of tools and resources. We have a database of grant opportunities for small businesses. We're culminating all of these resources with the launch of a Climate Academy that will be available for small business owners in January. But really the intent of these tools, these resources that we're developing, they're to help maker entrepreneurs prepare for climate-related disaster. They cover everything from planning ahead to managing the immediate impacts to planning for recovery post-disaster. And for US small businesses, particularly those in the US, it's really important and something that we've prioritized is making sure that the educational resources we're providing are tailored to the reality of makers and that they're easily discoverable. It's really hard to find information out there about how to support your business after a disaster. Examples of this include making insurance or government aid easily accessible, particularly for under-resourced communities where barriers to recovery are significantly greater. It's also, we have solutions like climate resilience funds and different financial resources that can help makers recover faster. Kwejo, I know you've experienced this firsthand, and so we'd like to ask if you could please share your story of how flooding has impacted both your home and your business.
Last year, Hurricane Helene caught my region off guard. Western North Carolina was hit very violently by this tropical storm and caused flooding and damage that had never been seen before by mostly everyone living in the area, including me and my family. We were all very impacted by it in terms of flooding happening in our home and also being displaced. I and my wife also welcomed our first child just 4 days after Hurricane Helene, which was very traumatic and just very scary because we got blocked in our neighborhood, couldn't get out to the hospital. But with the help of our neighbors and others, we were able to eventually get there and welcome our son into this world. So definitely a bright spot in the midst of a very traumatic and terrible event. People lost their homes, their businesses, and their livelihood. And as I mentioned before, we had to be displaced for a month while still supporting our employee and trying to keep our business going in order to support our livelihood. By the grace of God, we made it through, but it is definitely something that we will never forget, and we are grateful for the resources, like Lindsay mentioned, that have helped us to weather the storm and to make it out on the other side.
Thanks, Kwejo. And Chelsea, I know you had mentioned at the top sort of adaptation strategies that Etsy is leading. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that impacts the community?
Yeah, so 75% of our sellers are businesses of one, and most of them work on a shoestring budget without really the buffer to weather shocks. Most of them have not taken steps to reduce their risk or to protect themselves, their studios, their homes. And the largest barrier they have to doing so is really the lack of financial capital. So if and when a disaster does strike, it has a profound financial impact on our sellers. They're often forced to take on additional debt or deplete their personal savings. So disasters can be really, really difficult on our seller community.
When disaster strikes, particularly for home-based business owners, makers aren't just repairing a studio or a workspace. Climate disaster strikes twice. It impacts where they live and where they work. At Nest, we know, we say shoestring budget or razor-thin profit margins. We know that makers are operating in this way, and many don't have the financial cushion to prepare for or invest in climate-ready solutions. And so really, that kind of damage to a studio, it's obviously very devastating. And something that we don't often talk about, though, are the impacts on the supply chain for these businesses. If raw material suppliers go down or customers are impacted or employees can't make it to work, an entire business can be disrupted. And so Kwejo, if I can ask, can you share a little bit about how you work with local materials and the impact that storms like Hurricane Helene had on your business and your materials?
My business is very dependent on natural resources. Being a handmade wood furniture business, I need trees, I need lumber. And when Hurricane Helene hit, it wiped out 3 of my suppliers. And just left me with the question of what am I going to do? Is my business going to be able to survive and continue on? But over time, one of those major suppliers did recover, and I was able to access materials through them. But even to this day, there are difficulties with that supply chain for my business, and that goes for many of the other small businesses in my area. So I've had to think more critically about how I can maintain a reliable supply chain moving into the future. And later on, I'll talk more about what that looks like for my business. But it was very impactful, Hurricane Helene, on my supply chain.
And it's, with disasters, there's obviously the devastation of it, and sometimes there are creative opportunities that those disasters present. It sounds like there's investments and realizations of sort of diversification or investment in different ways in your business to strengthen it moving forward. And Chelsea, I'm wondering if, from Etsy's perspective, is that a national trend? Are you seeing similar stories across other sellers?
Absolutely. Our sellers are so resilient. It's wonderful to see how they come together and respond to shocks, whether it's a disaster or any other type of shock. They have so much resilience. But I will say that at the same time, there are definitely barriers for them. So 97% of our sellers work from their homes, but their home insurance usually won't cover a business. But a business run from a home usually doesn't qualify for the assistance designed for small businesses. So our sellers are really in a tough spot, and most social safety nets aren't catching them.
It's sort of, we talk about it as sort of a dual vulnerability. This dual vulnerability, we have 70% of makers that Nest has surveyed in our guild network, 97% of Etsy sellers using home-based work studios. It really does create this sort of exponential risk to the businesses and their viability. And as we know, they're creating jobs, they're contributing to their local economies, and so it's significant. Nest, we just published the 3rd edition of our State of the Handworker Economy report. It's a report that looks in depth at the global creative economy. This latest edition, we really zero in on how climate change has impacted craft communities, and we have both a domestic or US version as well as a global version of the report. Some good news in all of this talk about disaster is that there are really practical, really simple ways that we've come together and talked about how makers can navigate proactive steps and take those proactive steps to minimize the risks and build resilience. On a practical level, we call it home hardening. So things like emergency kits, securing backup water, backup electricity, raising your appliances to avoid flood damage, even planning ahead for supply chain disruptions, as we were talking about. It can also go as far as sort of contextualizing where you are. Is your home, which is also your workspace, in a floodplain? And if so, what resources are available to you? And sort of beginning to think about that sort of resiliency planning are some of the things that we talk about in the report. Kwejo, I know that you were sort of beginning to tell us all about sort of the disaster that struck last year, and I'm wondering if there are changes specifically that you can walk us through that you've implemented in your business to prevent, hopefully, future climate disasters.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've definitely had to think about changes that I need to make in order to go through similar situations and not have to shut my business down. One thing that became very apparent to me and to my family was the value and the importance of community. I was just so blown away by how the community rallied around us and how everybody was just supportive of everyone, because Hurricane Helene just upended mostly everyone's lives. So what we've been focusing on is leaning more into community, building our network, our support network, so that we can rely on others in the event of something similar to this. Just building relationships, that goes for colleagues, other makers, other business owners, and also our clientele, just trying to build that connection. Also, diversification of our revenue streams. So rather than being just reliant on the products that we produce, We've been outfitting our facility to be able to host workshops and classes and those sorts of things in order to be another revenue stream so that in the event that our supply chain is disrupted again, we can rely on some of our other sources of revenue. And so those are some of the changes that we've implemented in our business, and hopefully it helps us in the future.
And I think that's sort of the sort of two sides of disaster. I mean, it is devastating, but sort of looking at it from a positive angle, there are opportunities to reinforce and diversify and really build your business back stronger. 20 minutes goes so fast. I want to make sure that we have some time to really get a takeaway from both of you for the audience. So maybe, Chelsea, I can start with you. If there's one thing that you'd like our audience to take away from our conversation today, what would that be?
Yeah, I, like Kwejo, live in Nashville, so I was also there for Hurricane Helene. And really, in the aftermath of that, witnessing how people have been able to come together to overcome adversity has been so powerful. We can achieve so much when we're in community, whether that's our local community where we live or our community of sustainability professionals that we have in this room. Doing things together in community is very powerful. So I would love to invite you all here to join us in our quest to help develop tools for small businesses to mitigate the impacts of climate change. If your business relies on individuals working from home or small businesses, we'd love for you to join with us. So please get in touch. Together we can make a difference.
Amazing. Community is important, and building that sort of collective effort together is an important takeaway. Kwejo, a closing thought from you for the audience. What would you like them to walk away with today?
I would encourage people to shop craft, to shop small business. Small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy, and they need to be supported. We need to be supported. Also, invest in climate resilience. That goes for the large corporations, those with the resources to do big things, but also for the small businesses, we need to invest in climate resilience as well, and be thinking about how we can be nimble and make changes in our businesses that allow us to adapt as changes do occur.
Amazing. We started out at the beginning of the talk talking about how sustainability for the craft sector, it's not just an environmental issue. It really is a human one. And so very thankful for the two of you to kind of give a little bit of voiceover to that and really bring it to life for us. By naming the challenges that we're talking about today and by actively trying to tackle them, together we can build a stronger, more sustainable future for craft here in the US and around the world, so that creativity and culture and the economic contributions that we're talking about can thrive even as the climate changes. We'd like to now invite everyone. We have a special surprise for everyone. We want you to join us in the Garden Eatery. After this session, we have a crafting moment that we've organized for everyone. We're joined by Jessica Marquez of Miniature Rhino. She's here. We want to provide a mindful break. It's a very busy week, and so we have folks at the door to hand you a card. You can take it over to the Garden Eatery, and you'll get a beautiful hand-stitching kit to join us in a bit of a crafting moment and break from the week. Thank you for being with us, and enjoy. I hope we'll see you there.